If you clicked on this video, then you're probably wondering what the MTG Arena metagames look like after a week from the drop of Wilds of Eldraine. And after playing Standard, this is what I know. Disclaimer, Historic, Alchemy, and Explorer will get their time, don't worry. If you like this kind of content, do me a solid and click the like and subscribe button so this video pushes to more audiences and people like you, along with the notification bell so that you don't miss more videos like this one. Well, let's not waste any more time, except going 88 miles an hour towards lightning bolts. Well, instead of actually putting the summary last, I'm going to do you a solid and put the summary first, kind of like the bottom line up front, or bluff first for short, a TLDR version of what the standard metagame actually looks like. Let's take a look. To start, the established decks haven't changed much. The best deck in the format is Esper Control until more results come in and prove otherwise. It has the best of everything up the curve. In the early game, Esper has the best removal in Children's Edict, Go for the Throat, and Void Rend, coupled with the best sweepers in Sunfall and Farewell because they exile everything instead of destroying stuff. Memory Deluge is the best raw draw spell in the format currently, and supported with Siphon Insight and Silver Scrutiny to round out more ways to stay ahead. This deck can be built in many ways, but what I am sure about is Hornlocked Whale is a must-have. Better Aether Gust is the kind of tempo play you want, while also being attached to your win condition that cannot be duressed is kinda huge. Then, post-board, when opponents side out all their removal, Esper brings in Seed Shark and then beats you that way. This is what makes Esper a force to be reckoned with. One big weakness of the deck, however, is that much like most other control decks, is the skill it takes to pilot it correctly. In other words, the floor and ceiling of the deck vary widely depending on experience. For example, to know when to counter a spell and when to spend removal is a question that starts as early as turn 2, and not knowing hinders your win percentage. Before I touch on other established archetypes post-weekend, it is a beautiful early Monday morning as I record this update. A challenge in Japanese weekend tourney commenced, and Domain and Golgari midrange showed up in taking multiple spots in top 8s and top 16s. As you can see with the challenge, Domain took it down on the back of Invasion of Alara and Bramble Familiar. Now the way this works is sort of like how Bring to Light and Tibalt worked. Alara says you find 2 mana value spells and then cast one of them without paying the mana cost. But it is not checking upon resolution, as you can cast the adventure part because it's part of the card. This allows you to cast the big stuff like Desecrator, Flesh Gorger, or Atraxa for example. Either way, it is great to see new and old cards alike get play, because the 2 tourneys show that Standard is far from solved. Other established archetypes are Mono Red Aggro, Selesnya enchantments with Hollowed Haunting, still not sold on the Calyx versions however, and Domain. Honorable mentions, you can probably convince me on Golgari midrange, but it better have Griff Trumpets in them. Card is gaining more popularity for its performance. And possibly any of the adventure decks, the Jund Adventures, the Golgari Adventures, and an underdog that I would probably start testing is Nai Adventures with Rocco and Pia. For many of these decks, the question comes down to assessing what your plan for Esper Control is. For example, just saying 6 to 8 discard spells is going to be good enough isn't going to cut it. I learned this the hard way. To be Control, you need Pressure plus Disruption. The Pressure allows the game to end, whereas just having Disruption prolongs the game, but actually doesn't end, because you aren't pressuring them and you lose the game because of it. This is the reason Dimir midrange was so popular, as it provided both answers to the Esper and Domain questions. However, my assessment of Dimir midrange is they need to evolve their deck list. The old deck lists just do not cut it anymore, and Fairy seems to be performing even worse than them. On a more personal note, my personal performance against Dimir midrange and Fairies has me feeling the matchup isn't too difficult depending on what deck I'm on. What I will say is that even if you feel that Standard is not in a good spot, there really is an archetype for everyone. Aggro has Mono Red, midrange has Enchantress, Dimir midrange, Dimir Fairies, Rakdos, and even Mono Black, and Control and Ramp have Esper and Domain. There are also others in the lower performing deck lists like Gruul, Legends, etc. Something for Everyone is a great place to be at the start of a new format, and there are even off-meta choices that I want to showcase if you're a little bit exhausted of Shieldred or Wedding Announcements and Monastery Swiftspears. The decks I'm about to reveal are all decks that I've tested and performed at 50% win rate or higher. In my previous video, I spoke about the excitement for various cards that I felt were potential hits from Wilds of Eldraine. After losing a bunch with various decks, here's what worked for me on my climb, starting at Aluminum 4. Yeah, I know. I just started playing again, I'm getting back to form. What better way to start off than to start with one of the best colors in Standard, right? Esper. However, this is Esper Scam, not Esper Control, Legends, or any other Esper deck. This is what makes Standard so appealing, is that the same color combinations can have more than one archetype. What this deck is trying to do is to get a prototype creature onto the battlefield, and then blink or exile it with Guardian of Yarapir, Swift Spiral, or if the opponent attempts to remove it with a removal spell, we will use Werefox Bodyguard or Not Dead After All to bring it back. Much like with most mid-range decks, however, it does struggle against its counterpart in Esper Control, while on the other hand, it does get bigger than most creature decks to overpower them on the battlefield. What is also worth noting, another weakness is specifically Liliana on the draw, as you have no real early play except for Assembler, and if a black deck removes it, generally Liliana is not getting removed and that buries you. What I do like about this deck, however, is from the sideboard we have Malevolent Hermit. I think people have just kind of forgot about this card, that it actually exists, and it punishes control decks so hard, as much as the rest does, but paired with Sarah Paragon makes it hard for them to resolve anything. Also, if you cast the Deserve side of Hermit and blink him, it comes back as Hermit. The other deck that has been performing very well for me is Food Fight Anvil or Black Red Anvil. Worth noting, even the Jund variant of Food Fight was also above 50%, but we will get to why I moved off of it and into Rakdos. The more I played with Food Fight, the more I realized it is neither a 3-color mid-range card, nor a 2-color aggro card for reach or board control. I landed on a more 2-color mid-range shell that has the potential to be aggressive given the ideal start. This list has gone through a lot of changes, but ultimately this is where I landed. I completely understand if someone were to take a different approach or even a completely different archetype with Food Fight, but I really think Food Fight is the perfect complementing piece to Oni Cold Anvil. Together with enough artifacts, which are easy to come by, you have the engine that controls the board, grinds the opponent with virtual endless token generation, all while having a lot of ways to generating 2-for-1s. Red-Black's bread and butter. Now some might ask, what are the pros and cons of the deck? For starters, the deck functions a lot like most other sacrifice decks do, with lean curves, efficient removal, cheap card advantage, with the potential to nickel and diming the opponents faster than they actually realize. Generally, if you see the sequence of land, creature, go, you're really happy. The weaknesses of the deck typically show up in 2 places, against aggressive starts on the draw, and not having the best raw draw power from the likes of Esper Control and Domain. This is where the Razor Lash Transmogrants and the discard packages come in to keep constant, consistent pressure along with the disruption. The off-meta choices allow you to go off the beaten path while still being competitive against the metagame. Most decks are going to have problems with the combination of the big 3 or 4, and those are Enchantress, Domain, Esper Control, and Mono Red Aggro. In other words, you're going to have a plan for all 4 of the established archetypes, but your win rates are going to vary based on how well you match up against their game plans. No jokes this time. No breaks. All gas. And there you have it. That is all that I learned through the week of exploring the Standard metagame through the ladder and experiencing what everyone was trying to test out. I hope you enjoy all that has been happening on the ladder and in Standard as much as I have, as it's turning out to be a very fun Standard, even if some of the games go a bit longer than usual. As per usual, all deck lists, links, social media profiles, name drops, and everything will be posted in the description below. If you made it this far, don't forget on your way out to click the like and subscribe button to push this to more audiences and people like you, as well as the notification button so that you don't miss more content like this. And see you in the next one.